Welcome back to The Illustrated Man. I'm Trevor.
I'm Kaylee.
Today we're going to be talking about
The fire balloon.
the balloons of fire, if you might.
Okay, so main characters, Father Peregrine and Father Stone. So we start off on Earth and they're getting ready to make their way to Mars. Right, and they're talking about how they might be finding new sin up in Mars. Like, what kind of sin is up there? If they're escaping the sins that they have here on Earth, and just to go over to Mars and find new sin up there. So they're kind of doubting a little bit, like, oh, are we really running away, or are we, is this good to move on to somewhere else? So they finally make it to Mars. And there they talk to somebody and they're like, okay, where are the Martians? We want to start, knowing more about them. How heavy are they for the benches? What color are they? Like their skin, so that way when they make their stained glass, they can make sure they have the right skin tone. Things like that. Which I thought was funny because they're already planning on making the church for them to come in, rather than learning what their beliefs are. But yeah, at least they're being nice about it and all that. Mm-hmm. And then the guy's like, oh yeah, some Martians are, they're pretty long gone, or they're hidden, or some of them aren't even human or animal really. They're kind of this like ball of, well, we're gonna go into that. Anyway.
We'll get there.
They set out Father Stone and Father Peregrine over to the hills to try to find these Martians and try to see where they're at, try to talk to them, try to get to know them. And what do they see?
You see balls of St. Elmo's fire descending from the hills. They're bright, luminous blue, and Father Stone, he quakes in fear. He doesn't think that they should approach these things. He has a change of heart. He doesn't believe that these things can be converted. He thinks they're just dumb animals here to kill them. But there is a priest who is steadfast in his belief that these creatures have souls and that they can be converted and saved for Jesus. And he tries to approach them, but they have no interest when they go away. But that's when a giant avalanche comes down from the hills. They're sure to be crushed, but what do they know? They're home and safe, away from the avalanche. And all they witnessed was a blue ambiescence about them before they were dropped off safely.
So Father Peregrine is very set on, oh wow, an animal wouldn't try to save us. An animal wouldn't just do this just to be nice, They must have a soul. So while they set up camp, Father Stone is sleeping and Father Peregrine goes up on top of the hill and tries to test this out. And he contemplates it like, oh, I love this life that I have so much, but I'm doing this for the greater good. Trying to find out really, like, if they have a soul, then they're worth saving, is what he's trying to do. So he jumps off the hill, kind of creates an avalanche, kind of downing himself. He's like, oh, you fool. And right as he's like about to fall or like die, you would think, he gets saved by the blue spheres again.
And this is a big sin. This is coming from a priest. And he contemplates a little bit. Is this suicide? I don't think it's suicide, but he's literally jumping off a cliff. And it's so close to blasphemous. Like, if he was expecting God to save him, if he was testing God, that would be blasphemous. You're not supposed to, attempt suicide with the belief that God is going to save you. That's still sin. You're still, most people see it as a sin. But he is banking on the fact that these things will save him because they have always saved him. And even if they don't have souls, you would think, well, if they don't have souls, he's gambling with his eternal soul right before he dies. But he says, well, God, I believe that they have souls completely, and so it only matters what I believe, not the actual objective reality. So he commits himself and he does jump off and he is saved. So he was right in that gamble. Mm-hmm. I just think it's interesting for a priest to take that risk.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, after doing this, he runs down, wakes up Father Stone and says, hey, they saved me. And Father Stone is like, no, you're dreaming. It was a dream. you're just so like caught up on the idea that you dreamt all that. And he's like, no. And he takes out this gun that they had for their protection while camping, and he shoots his hand, and then he shoots his body, and then he shoots his leg, and all of the bullets just like fall to the ground. They don't even hit him because the blue spheres just come up, and Father Stone sees it too. So now they both like have this like what's it called, evidence that they can both share. Next day they come back and grab this brother, and they say, hey, we want to build a church now over in the hill, and what we're gonna do is we're going to create a kind of a gold sphere to play their god in their church. And they're questioning this. They're like, hey, is this like not okay, because we worship this man with limbs and a head, and we're just creating a false god. We don't actually believe in this sphere. And he's saying, no, we don't believe in the sphere. We don't believe in the man with limbs. We just believe in God himself, like the entity, like himself. And they're like, oh, okay, that's a good idea. Which I thought was like a really good idea, because even he was talking about how over the Chinese Christians, they have their version of a Chinese god that resembles like the people who live there. And same with people in Mexico, and they just have their own equal person that resembles them. And he even mentioned something about Africa, how he's like, it's kind of weird how they still worship a white god, but that's because white kind of symbolizes something nicer, I guess, to them. So, but he said that eventually maybe they change his skin tone a little darker in the future. They create this sphere, and they head out to this church to create a church over in the hills. And he sets it up. He brings a bell just to comfort themselves, just so they don't feel that weird, because already they feel pretty weird putting up a sphere and then just being out of a church setting, but still being church.
It almost looks like worshiping an idol.
Except, yeah, that's literally what they were talking about. They're like, but no, Father, what's his name? Peregrine says, no, it's worshiping
It's just like
God
the
himself.
crucifix. And so there is this debate of, oh, well, can we really have them worshiping? Like, we get that the idea of Jesus translate differently to different cultures here on earth, but can we really take the man out of Jesus? But you can't take the Jesus out of the man. Well, they decide that you can put the Jesus in the sphere, and they think that God can inherit any vessel. It's the content of the vessel that matters, which is God. And the fact that Jesus is a man matters only to humanity. And the fact changes over you. They wouldn't accept an alien God. We wouldn't accept a squid God. If Jesus came as a squid, we probably wouldn't accept it.
Now it's church day. They're playing on the organ and everything.
Sunday.
They're Sunday, but they don't know if it's the sphere Sunday. But
True.
regardless, then Father Peregrine goes into a prayer and says, please let them come. Please, Lord, And eventually they do come, and then they speak to them. And they say, hey, we've been here, and we're actually beyond this human form. And
we don't sin the same way, because we don't have the ability to sin.
Basically, they kind of detach themselves from this other group of Martians and said that a long time ago, this man just learned how to take out the actual, the soul out of the man, metaphorically speaking, but then eventually it became like an actual physical thing. So they really did rise beyond their human self. They have ascended, basically, actually. So yeah, they don't have the same, I guess, feelings. They don't feel, there's no rich, there's no poor, there's no happiness really, or no melancholy. It's just there's no this or that.
They don't have limbs to murder. They don't have wives to covet. They don't have fornication because they're spheres. They don't have any of the things. They can't drink to excess. They can't commit the traditional sins. And so they've kind of risen to a sinless state, if that's at all possible.
Mm-hmm. But they're happy. They're happy with being apart from everybody else and just being blue spheres. And fathers do just break down crying. They're like, wow, this is amazing. Can I come back? Can I learn from you?
I don't want to go back to humans.
Yeah, they're just like, yep. I don't know. I guess that was all their, let's see. They said that they never question it really ever again, just because they are the living proof that they ever needed, you know, that it is possible to be in a higher state.
I'm getting the feeling that Ray Bradbury has something to talk about with Christianity. He's making all of his stories religious in a certain way, and followed religious aspects that usually wouldn't be in science fiction.
I don't know, I like it because he's making everything so realistic. These are actual questions and scenarios that we would actually go through if we were to live out his like scenarios of going to Mars. Like, what would actually happen? Instead of cutting straight to the actual sci-fi technology, he goes into like the basic human needs, which are like religion and just like the mind itself, you know, all these actual things, even the weather, like the small things that you think, oh yeah, these are just like background things, but no, he actually goes into everything.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice, but I think, again, people are more religious back in his time. I don't think we're nearly as religious in the modern day. So it is a little bit odd to hear, because usually when you hear religion, science fiction, there's tons of science fiction that has religion in it. It's just usually not in the way we have it today. It's either a different religion, or it's corrupted, or it's completely benevolent, or it's, you know, maleficent. But so there is religion in science fiction. I mean, there's religion in Dune, except it's sending a different message. I don't know what the message is here from Ray Bradbury.
I don't think there's a message. I think it is just very common and basic human thought, which is what makes his books like very much more enjoyable, because it's just like, oh yeah, normal scenarios brought to life and played out in different, because in a lot of his other stuff, it's kind of like going over the same ideas, but in different, like he's taking different paths to it. So that's why I like, you know.
Well, I think that's all we have for today. The fireballs.
Play the fireball song.
Come back next time, guys. Make sure to
Now fill up the screen with a ton of icons and like the little pop, 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 pop of like